Would you like to be an astronaut? If so, you should know it's a pretty weird job. The way you eat, sleep, and do everyday stuff is a whole lot different. From blowing your nose to voting in an election, astro-life is surprisingly complex, but also rewarding. I'm Mike with List 25, and I'm taking you on a journey into the headspace of a space jockey, because these are 25 strange things astronauts deal with in space. 25. Sneezing. We need gravity to literally keep our feet on the ground, but we also need it for the small stuff, like sneezing. Think about it. If mucus can't flow in a certain direction, things get pretty disgusting. In a workplace like the International Space Station, you're working in microgravity, which makes sneezing a potential disaster. You're told to sneeze into your elbow to minimize any risk. Going for a spacewalk is even more chaotic. If you sneeze, it could go straight onto your visor. Not what you want when you're carrying out repairs on the outside of a space station. Sneezing is definitely a drawback in space, though the situation isn't straightforward. You may not even sneeze much at all, thanks to pressure changing the way fluid moves around your sinuses. In space, no one can hear you sneeze. 24. Space urination. Astronauts have to pee like everyone else. NASA put a lot of thought into how astronauts relieve themselves, at least on the male side. I'll talk about how women coped shortly. One idea was a special device made up of a storage box and a condom-like tube. By popping the condom part onto their anatomy, guys could urinate with confidence. Unfortunately, the names for this device weren't exactly flattering. Small, medium, and large. Talk about making someone feel inadequate. That's why they were changed to descriptions like extra large, immense, and unbelievable. Meanwhile, female astronauts also have to use a tube-based system, though it took till 2020 for NASA to make something totally suitable for their needs. The Universal Waste Management System was designed with a funnel and seat that would be more comfortable for both men and women aboard the ISS. The system cost an astonishing $23 million to build, showing the agency was literally peeing money away, though it was for a good cause. In fact, you could say they were boldly going where no person has gone before. 23. Peeing bones. Being in space takes its toll on your bones. In fact, every month you lose approximately 1% of your total bone mass. Why? Because you're not experiencing Earth's gravity, but microgravity. This weightlessness takes the pressure off your bones, which sounds like a good thing. Ultimately, it isn't. Over time, your bones get rid of calcium-rich minerals that would otherwise be used to strengthen your skeleton for daily activities. Your back, hips, and legs are receiving less of a workout, so an excess builds up. Where does it go? First into your bloodstream. Then you pee it out. This isn't something you can fully prevent with exercise either. It helps, but astronauts are likely to have issues with bone strength, especially after long voyages in space. 22. Mysterious light flashes. Deep space is a mysterious place. It can play tricks with your eyes, leading you to see light flashes and streaks. Cosmic ray particles are seemingly able to pass through your eye, creating these weird lighting effects, and it doesn't make a difference if you close them. How do they do that? Here's where things get a little confusing, because even experts don't know yet. It could involve a type of radiation called Cherenkov radiation, and the freaky thing is, it happens inside your eye before you know what's happening. You see, according to your eye, the cosmic ray particles move faster than light. The rays zap into your eyeball, causing flashes in your vitreous, which is the gel that fills your eye to keep it stable. Others believe the particles create an optical illusion by stimulating the optic nerve to see a light show that isn't there. Either way, these flashes aren't super harmful, but the lights might keep you up at night when you're trying to sleep. 21. Space anemia. There's a condition specific to astronauts called space anemia, meaning they have lower numbers of red blood cells. These cells transport oxygen and carbon dioxide around the body, so you need the right amount. Finding out what caused this anemia was important. In 2022, a study focused on people aboard the ISS. It revealed that 3 million of the red blood cells were being made and destroyed every second. That's a million more than the average, and leaving astronauts losing over 50% more cells than the rest of us. Why does this happen? Well, fluids behave differently in space thanks to a lack of gravity. This is supposed to move your blood downwards. In microgravity, all the blood is spread out in different directions. To compensate for this, your body reduces the amount of red blood cells. Everything is rebalanced once you return to Earth, though your system takes a long time to adjust. 20. The space stupids. Being an astronaut messes with your head, leaving you feeling a bit of a doofus. Having the so-called space stupids is a common thing with astronauts. It makes you feel unstable and uncoordinated to the point where you might lose your balance. How exactly does an astronaut become stupid in space? It happens because of the way space interferes with our natural thought processes and our built-in sense of balance. Entering microgravity makes fluids flow upwards, raising pressure levels in the skull. Adding to that is the effect microgravity has on our inner ear. The crystals we use to balance should be settled, but that can't happen in this environment. So not only are we not thinking straight, we're likely to lose control or experience sensations of movement even when standing still. 19. Getting stuck. Life doesn't always go as expected, which isn't necessarily a big deal here on Earth. Up in space, however, it can be a major problem. Remember the story of Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore? They spent 9 months on the ISS between 2024 and 25. It was a fascinating trip, but it wasn't planned. The pair were supposed to only be there for a few days. Safety issues with their capsule meant they couldn't just fly back to Earth, a situation that left them stuck in microgravity. When you're an astronaut, timing is everything. One false move is the difference between days and months. It sounds agonizing, but that's what these brave people signed up for. Better to do things by the book than risk disaster. 18. Learning Russian. America and Russia aren't the best of friends. That said, there's no time for international rivalry in astronaut circles. The ISS is a great example of this. It's been in orbit around our planet since 1998, and it got there thanks to the US and Russian space agencies working hand in hand. Communication is everything if you're working on the station. That means learning each other's languages. American space travelers spend time taking Russian classes as part of their training. These classes can go on for months, years possibly, but the results are worth it. In an emergency situation, you don't want to be distracted by checking a translation app. It should be an instinctive thing, which is why you have to reach a level of Russian described as intermediate high if you want to talk to your foreign crewmates. Thankfully, the Russians speak English too, helping everyone get along in an already stressful working environment. 17. Weird waste. We don't know if so-called little green men live on the moon, but if they do, they're in for a nasty surprise. Human astronauts don't just leave footprints and flags. They leave other stuff behind too. I'm talking about poop bags. Any alien that breaks open one of these bad boys will find urine and feces. Yes, our ability to create litter isn't restricted to planet Earth. So why do we dump biological waste on the lunar surface? This decision is more practical than anything. Waste matter can be stored on a spacecraft, though would you really want a full toilet tank near your head as you were hurtling through the atmosphere? That's a recipe for disaster right there. Also, the bacteria in poop won't survive on the moon outside of a sealed bag. That's because the moon doesn't have the atmosphere and microbes to sustain anything icky. It's still an inconsiderate thing to do, though. 16. So many sunrises. On Earth, we get one sunrise and one sunset a day. On the ISS, however, you multiply that by around 16. How come? Well, when you're Earthbound, you orbit the sun once every 24 hours. In space, it's a different story. The ISS is going around the Earth approximately once every 90 minutes. That not only messes with the natural light, but it also interferes with an astronaut's body clock. If you're not careful, that has a negative effect on your sleep. The body clock is dictated by circadian rhythms, which are your body's way of reading light and dark. When it's light, the rhythms keep you awake. When it's dark, they wind you down and prepare you for sleep. With so many sunrises and days lasting an hour and a half, your system soon gets confused. It takes a little more than an eye mask to cope with this wild space light show. 15. Toilet gymnastics. Here's a fact you never knew you needed. It's pointless to try to flush a toilet in space. Why? Because water doesn't behave itself in microgravity. In which case, how do astronauts go potty? We've covered urination and poop bags in previous stories, and now we're further exploring the business of doing your business in space. A toilet on board a spacecraft or space station uses air rather than water. So we're a walking vacuum and suction rather than a flush mechanism. Okay, that all sounds straightforward. But wait, you can't just sit down on this thing. There's no gravity to hold you there. Believe it or not, astronauts have to strap themselves in with a star toilet, kind of like they're going on a roller coaster. You can also use foot restraints and handholds. Plus, don't forget the powerful suction effect, which holds your hiney in position. It's a hygienist's worst nightmare, but hey, it's the only way to do things right. 14. Slower aging. If we ever get to Mars, there could be an interesting side effect. You see, astronauts age more slowly thanks to something called time dilation. This idea was first suggested by Albert Einstein back in the early 20th century as part of his famous theory of relativity. According to him, the faster you move through space, the more dilated time becomes. In other words, there's a slight expansion of time. Time moves more slowly while your body clock stays in the same place. This way, the aging process is slowed down. I should add, we're talking about a difference of milliseconds here, which doesn't mean much in the long run. You definitely age more slowly, but not in a very noticeable way at all. Still a cool fact though. 13. Taste and smell. Microgravity and good food don't mix. We know this through the experiences of astronauts who've consumed meals in space. If you're hoping for a taste explosion in a place like the ISS, think again. The effect of microgravity puts a dampener on your senses of taste and also your sense of smell. Why does this happen? Basically, you experience the symptoms of a cold, with the lack of gravity causing fluid to head upward and clog your nose. The good news is that the blocked up nose goes away, though interestingly, astronauts still report a bland taste. A study by the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology revealed that this is because a lack of tasty smells impacts how people enjoy food. Even though they eventually can smell it, the instinct of the astronauts is to expect a boring taste. It's amazing how being up among the stars messes with your senses. 12. Interference from flares. Just because we can go into space doesn't mean that space is going to cooperate. One way space interferes with our business is through solar flares. These are explosions that take place on the surface of the sun, caused when huge amounts of magnetic energy are released from inside. They're spectacular to look at, but also a pain for astronauts using radio equipment. How come? Well, the radiation from the flares disturbs Earth's upper atmosphere, scrambling radio signals and sometimes causing communication blackouts. The effect is so powerful that it can take out satellites, though there are alternative means of communication we can use if there is a major issue. Astronauts also shield their equipment from possible flare activity. Ultimately, you can only plan so much when up against the vast power of space. 11. Sexual health in space. Okay, so when we go into space, we take risks. There are risks that come from stuff like technical malfunctions. Then there are the risks coming from physical dysfunction. To be specific, erectile dysfunction. A combination of microgravity and cosmic rays may result in a lack of performance in the bedroom back on Earth. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail about this. After all, this is a family channel. However, it's worth mentioning how this could happen. Microgravity, as we've learned, plays all kinds of havoc with the fluids in your body. That naturally has an effect on erections, but it's the cosmic rays that are thought to cause more trouble. Research findings released in 2023 by NASA indicate that the radiation from these rays affects the tissue of people's private parts. This isn't a firmed up fact, but the research is definitely a starting point for further exploration in the field. 10. Constant exercise. Working out is important for life on Earth. We all know that. What you may not know is that exercise is taken to a whole other level in space. This isn't just to keep your body active, it's to hold off the effects of microgravity. Take away gravity, and a lot of the pressure your body is used to doesn't exist anymore. What do I mean by that? Let me explain a bit more. When we go running here on Earth, gravity stops us from floating off into space. If we're using an exercise bike, gravity keeps our butts on the seat. Gravity puts pressure on us, and our bodies naturally respond to it. Now imagine how our bodies react without gravity to help them. Over time, muscles and bones start to get weaker, and you gradually waste away. Physical exercise plus mental stimulation through stuff like watching movies is an important part of an astronaut's routine. Exercising isn't just an option, it's a necessity. 9. Recycling liquid. On a long space mission, you need to protect your resources. Water, for example. Not a drop of it should be waste. And when I say water, I'm not just talking about the stuff you get from a bottle. There's moisture that builds up in the space capsule or space station, naturally present in the air. Plus, the other kinds of water, urine and sweat. The icky truth is that both are over 90% water, so it would be crazy not to recycle them so astronauts have something to drink. Don't worry, it's all totally filtered, so all the nasty stuff is removed. However, if the idea of drinking recycled pee and perspiration is too much to handle, then the life of an astronaut may not be for you. 8. Food restraints. Preparation is key in space, even when doing something like eating a meal. Things are complicated right from the get-go. Before you can eat the food, you have to cook it. This involves rehydrating freeze-dried meals in packets. The packets are injected with hot water, then opened with scissors. Plus, the space meat is usually eaten on a tray, which has to be clipped into position or held with Velcro. Magnets are also used, giving astronauts various options to restrain their food and utensils and stop them from floating away and causing disruption. Having dinner at a location like the ISS doesn't so much involve a knife and fork as a whole toolkit. It's a convoluted business serving a meal on a space station, but one thing's for sure, the views in this place can't be beat. 7. Astronaut voting. Here's something about astronauts I never even considered. What if there's an election going on while you're up in space? Thankfully, you're able to keep democracy alive through a system called the SCAN program. This stands for Space, Communication, and Navigation, and was developed by NASA. It means you can cast your vote through an electronic ballot system, even if you're over 1,000,000 miles away. Astronauts on the ISS send encrypted messages via satellites and relays, letting pollsters know who's getting their support. Astronauts have been voting from space since the late 90s, when laws were passed allowing them to do so. Before that, they didn't have a voice, which is totally unfair. 6. Immune system issues. One thing you're going to rely on in space is your immune system. This is your body's built-in defense against infection and disease, so it's worrying to hear that being in microgravity can affect it. White blood cells are vital to the immune system, as they produce antibodies. A lack of gravity interferes with their work. Antibodies are aggressive proteins, otherwise known as the foot soldiers of your body. Without them, you simply can't fight off infections, which spells bad news for astronauts. Not only does being in space make you more vulnerable to diseases from outside, but you can also develop existing diseases inside your body. For example, herpes has been resurrected from a dormant state in some individuals during space voyages. Yikes. 5. Puffy Faces. Have you ever suffered from moon face? Well, you definitely have if you're an astronaut. It's when your face turns puffy and swells because of fluid flowing to your head in microgravity. Unfortunately, this is the less glamorous side of what happens after you blast off. And for some, it isn't a big deal. Who cares if you look puffy? Unless you have to, record a TV interview or something. That said, you do have to take care with moonface. Your eyes can be put under extra strain with the excess fluid, and it may affect your vision. In some cases, it could even cause permanent damage, flattening part of your eyeball and warping your optic nerve and retina. Meanwhile, increased pressure in your head means increased pressure on your brain. The longer you stay in space, the more at risk you are from these health problems. 4. Space surgery. How do you carry out an operation in zero gravity? Experts are still working out an answer. How come? Because it's a challenge they haven't faced before. Sure, there have been emergencies on board space stations such as the ISS, but these involve situations like someone nearly drowning, not an organ replacement or anything gunky. The ISS isn't equipped for a full-scale operation, meaning space surgery is still a work in progress. They've certainly tried to tackle the problem in simulated conditions, but without much success. It's thought robot surgeons are the way forward, but they'd still have to contend with the same issues human surgeons would. Blood has a habit of going everywhere in microgravity. Also, it's tough to use anesthetics because microgravity affects both fluid and gas. We spent a long time working out how to perform operations on planet Earth. Seems it'll take a while in space, too. 3. Noise nuisance. A space station isn't the place to go if you want to be quiet. That may sound like a strange thing to say, because isn't space known for being super quiet? Well, space is, but the station isn't. Astronauts on board the ISS have a tough time giving their ears a rest due to the sheer amount of equipment needed to keep them in orbit. It must be like trying to work next to a washing machine the whole time. This constant background noise isn't great for sleep either, so no wonder being an astronaut is a tiring job. You're not only fighting against the microgravity, but you're struggling to concentrate sometimes with all the commotion. 2. Using pens. Pens in space do more than just write. In fact, they're so different that astronauts need special pens for the task at hand. How do they work? Inside an astronaut pen is a pressurized cartridge, which pushes the ink through the nib. With a regular pen, ink naturally flows down due to gravity. Astronauts have been able to write in space since the 60s when the first astronaut pen was invented. Though I guess it isn't that much of a problem today, thanks to touchscreens replacing traditional instruments like ballpoint pens. Though you should always have a pen handy in case you need to do things the old-fashioned way. Also, you may remember the classic Seinfeld episode, The Pen? The story was about how astronaut pens write upside down, a fact that impressed Jerry so much he took one for himself with hilarious consequences. 1. Astro Pay. Did you know that astronauts receive a space bonus? They have their usual earnings, but they also get paid for being up in space. It's a daily rate, and to be honest, it's not the greatest pay in the world. $5. So going on a month-long space mission would bag you a grand total of about $150. Still, you're not going up there for the money, you're going into space for a higher purpose. You're exploring the final frontier. A fat bonus would help you explore a little better, but, well, that's how it goes when you apply for a job as an astronaut. You should keep your mind on the wonders of space, plus the juicy employment opportunities that come later. The more you find out about astronauts, the crazier it gets. Still want to be one? Let me know in the comments below. Astronauts don't want us to know about some of these facts. That said, there are things they definitely want to tell us about. We're blasting off into a whole new universe of facts with this video, 25 space secrets astronauts want you to know. Why not join me? Or I'll see you soon for another Out of This World list. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell, and I'll see you guys real soon.